For centuries, we've kind of viewed the human body as this incredibly intricate machine, right? Meticulously put together based on a genetic blueprint. But what if that's not the whole story? What if the body is actually less like a machine and more like a society, a vast, multiscale collective intelligence, where all the parts are constantly problem-solving and collaborating just to keep you alive? Let's explore this hidden mind.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at why that old genetic blueprint idea is, well, broken. Then, we're going to dive into the absolutely stunning evidence for the body's collective wisdom. From there, we'll see how this cellular IQ actually gives rise to our own consciousness. Then we'll uncover the universal mathematical rule that seems to govern all of it. And finally, we'll see how this radical new understanding is getting ready to revolutionize medicine forever.
All right, let's be clear. The current biomedical paradigm, the one that gave us the Human Genome Project and all these amazing drugs, it's been incredibly successful, but it's starting to hit a wall. The core idea that our genes are the sole architects of life, it's beginning to look fundamentally incomplete. I mean, really, think about this for a second. We have the complete source code for a human being, and yet if you handed that code to our most brilliant scientists, they couldn't even begin to render an accurate picture of the person it belongs to. They couldn't predict their exact facial structure or, their limb length. If the genome is supposed to be a blueprint, it's a strangely vague one. And this is one of the first really big cracks in that old model.
So this brings us to a really radical shift in thinking. The old way of seeing things was a one-way street. Genes make proteins, and those proteins build the body from the bottom up. Simple. But the new paradigm suggests something far more dynamic. It sees the body as a collective of intelligent agents, all collaborating to achieve specific goals. We're moving from seeing life as just genetic hardware to finally understanding the physiological software that it's running.
And the evidence against this simple blueprint model is just piling up. And it comes in the form of some truly bizarre biological paradoxes. For instance, scientists can create something called a frogolotl, a hybrid of frog and axolotl cells, but with all our genetic knowledge, we have no idea if it will grow legs or not. Or take the planarian flatworm. Its genome is an absolute mess, a total chaos, yet it's a master of regeneration and it almost never gets cancer. That's the exact opposite of what you'd predict. These aren't just minor exceptions. They're huge signals that our model is missing something really fundamental.
Okay, so if the genome isn't a rigid blueprint, then what is it? Well, the answer starts with the groundbreaking work of biologist Michael Levin. He's the one who started to reveal this hidden, problem-solving intelligence that's humming away in all of our cells and tissues.
The key concept here is something called anatomical homeostasis. Now, we all get homeostasis for things like body temperature or blood sugar, right? Your body just works to keep them in a specific range. Well, it turns out your body does the exact same thing for its own shape. It has a target morphology, a correct body plan, and it will actively work to get there and stay there even when things go seriously wrong. It's kind of like a thermostat, but for your anatomy.
And this isn't just a cool theory. The experimental evidence is absolutely stunning. Scientists have surgically scrambled the developing face of a tadpole, just mixed all the parts up. And yet, during metamorphosis, all those parts migrated through completely new paths to form a perfectly normal frog face. They've also engineered newts to have giant cells, but instead of growing into giant newts, their bodies just used fewer cells to build normal-sized organs. This is not a pre-programmed set of instructions. This is flexible, goal-directed problem-solving, live and in action.
But maybe the most mind-bending example of all is the two-headed planarian. So scientists found the bioelectric pattern, a specific voltage map across the cells that basically says build a head here. They then used some drugs to briefly disrupt that pattern in a piece of a worm. The result? The worm regenerated with two heads. But here's where it gets absolutely wild. That two-headed body plan is now a permanent memory. Every single time that worm regenerates from a fragment, it grows two heads. And it passes this trait to its offspring, all without a single change to its DNA. The memory of the body plan isn't just in the genes, it's literally written in electricity.
And that is the secret. Bioelectricity is the cognitive glue. It's this ancient communication network that lets individual cells, each with its own little agenda, cooperate and form a collective intelligence that's capable of building something as crazy complex as a limb or a face. It's basically the evolutionary precursor to the nervous system, and it's been managing construction projects inside bodies for over 1 billion years.
So we have this intelligence in our tissues solving anatomical problems. But how does that scale up to the intelligence we actually experience every single moment, our own consciousness? Well, neuroscientist Antonio Damasio provides this powerful framework that suggests our sense of self is built from these very same biological foundations.
Damasio's work kicks off with this really radical idea that flips how we think about the mind. See, we tend to believe that complex thoughts come first, and then feelings are sort of a byproduct. Damasio argues the exact opposite is true. That raw biological feeling of being alive, that's the very foundation upon which consciousness and memory and reason are all built.
He suggests our sense of self is built in layers. At the very bottom, you have the proto-self. It's a completely non-conscious, real-time map of your body's internal state, generated deep in your brainstem. It's just raw data. Then, when that proto-self interacts with something, a sight, a sound, it sparks core consciousness. This is that simple, wordless feeling of knowing that something is happening to you right now. And then finally, layered on top of all of that, is the autobiographical self, the storyteller that weaves together memory and the future to create your identity over time.
And this just brilliantly illustrates Damasio's whole point. Consciousness isn't some abstract ghost in the machine. It is the body's way of telling a story about its own struggle for survival. It's like a high-level user interface for that ancient fundamental biological drive we saw earlier, homeostasis, that deep imperative to just stay alive and well.
Okay, so we've got Levin's intelligent tissues maintaining anatomical goals, and we've got Damasio's conscious self maintaining biological goals. Both of them are all about achieving and holding on to a target state no matter what. So that begs the question, is there some universal principle, like a physics of life, that governs both of them? Well, according to the polymath Carl Friston, the answer is a resounding yes, and it can actually be described with math.
It's called the free energy principle. Now, the math behind it is, let's just say it's deeply complex. But the core idea is surprisingly intuitive. To stay alive, any living thing, from a single cell all the way up to you, has to resist the natural tendency to fall into disorder. And the best way to do that in a chaotic universe is to get really, really good at predicting what's going to happen next. By constantly building a model of the world and acting to make your predictions come true, you minimize surprise. In short, all of life is a prediction machine.
But for a system to predict its world, it first needs a clear boundary between itself and the world. This is where a concept called the Markov blanket comes in. The easiest way to think about it is like the skin of a cell. It's not just a physical wall, it's an information boundary. It mathematically defines what it means to be a distinct thing that is separate from everything else. As Friston likes to say, if something doesn't have a Markov blanket, it doesn't exist. And here's basically how it works. The internal self doesn't have direct access to the outside world. Nope, it only knows about the world through its sensory states, and it can only influence the world through its active states. This simple partition is what creates a perspective, a point of view. It's what creates an inside from an outside, a self from the rest of the universe. So now, here's where it all just clicks together. Levin cells, working so hard to build a proper limb, are essentially minimizing the prediction error between their current state and their target anatomical shape. And Damasio's conscious mind, driven by feelings to maintain homeostasis, is busy minimizing long-term surprise about its internal bodily state. You see? They are both playing by the exact same rulebook. The free energy principle is the unifying law that connects the intelligence of our tissues to the intelligence of our minds.
Understanding this new paradigm, this idea of the body as a multiscale, goal-directed intelligence, it's not just some fascinating academic exercise. It has absolutely revolutionary implications for the future of medicine. It suggests that maybe we need to stop fighting the body and start collaborating with it.
This quote from Michael Levin really sets the stage for what's coming next. We have to shift our focus from just micromanaging the molecular hardware to actually understanding and communicating with the physiological software. It's all about working with the body's inherent wisdom, not trying to force our will against it. And this just opens up a whole new therapeutic roadmap. Instead of just editing genes, we can target the body's software. Imagine rewriting the bioelectric memories, the anatomical set points, to tell the body to regenerate a limb or fix a birth defect. We could use conditioning techniques to train molecular pathways to respond to safe drugs instead of toxic ones. And for something like cancer, instead of just killing rogue cells, we could try to reconnect them to the bioelectric network of the tissue, reminding them that they're part of a larger team and normalizing their behavior. We'll end on this incredibly powerful thought from Fabrizio Benedetti. This entire journey, from intelligent cells to conscious minds, it all leads to one profound conclusion. Life is directed by information.
Whether that information comes as a molecule in a drug, a voltage pattern in a tissue, or even a thought in our mind, at the end of the day, it's the message that matters. The future of medicine might look a lot less like chemistry and a lot more like communication, a therapeutic alliance with the hidden mind inside every single one of us.